Yes, let me do the reset for the video and everything. But hello and welcome again to another edition of Zymposium. Today we're going to get back to our roots, or at least what we were doing at the beginning and sort of erstwhile dipped our toes back into the front end and the back end, the whole thing, the full stack app development, building apps, semi-real world apps, hopefully as real world as we can get over time, just to show off the different things we think about and how to potentially use Zio and Scala.js to make your lives easier and more pleasurable in writing these full stack applications, particularly maybe with an eye to app architecture with Zio and Z layers. Something that I am a big fan of, but certainly there are many ways of using these features, and I think some are going to give you a better time than others. So hopefully we can explore how it can make organizing your app very standard and sort of take a lot of guesswork out of it, and you can sort of follow certain patterns and modify them when you need to, but not spend too much time with paralysis at the beginning of an application, overwhelmed by decision making. Okay, but let's actually start and look at some really ugly UI stuff, and I'll catch everyone up with what we've been doing. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and get us over to here, and let me make sure the zoom bar goes away. I recently figured out how to hide the zoom bar, which is, oh, I hit the wrong thing. There we go. Now everything's hidden, including Adam. I didn't mean to hide you, Adam. So now you can grimace at me and I won't know. So also add, there we go, silences. Great. All right, so we're going to be working on an app that we had started a while ago, but I can do a quick rundown because it's been some time. And it's basically, at its heart, a Meetup clone or a Meetup competitor. We're going to disrupt meetup.com and destroy it. Salvo's fired. Salvo's salvoed against meetup.com. So this is it's an app for basically what we use Meetup for, which is for hosting these kinds of weekly meetings. You know, we're not actually trying to start a startup here, but we're going to pretend we are, sort of, to some degree, at least as it helps us motivate and design and think about real world problems as much as we can, limit the contrivance for building an app, which is going to be this Meetup thing. So far we did a little bit of this sort of in looking at how to use Zio HTTP as well as Quill for accessing databases, and we set up a couple of simple services. So an event service and an account service and some very basic functionality, because we're building a Meetup type app, which means that our domain is going to be in events and accounts and Rsvps and potentially groups and other things like that. But we're going to try to keep it as simple as we can, but also being usable, and sort of use this as an opportunity to explore as many real world concerns as we can explore. But first we need a little more to be done on the core application. So we made a little bit of a task list for ourselves here. We currently have events. We can create events. We'll look at what that code looks like. We can create and delete Rsvps, which is just linking an event to a particular user. And that's basically it. We can create events, we can create and delete Rsvps. We have users. There's a very simple admin user interface, which looks horrendous. Let's take a look at it. It looks like this. So it's really, really horrifying. Oh, and actually let me quickly, I think I need to restart my front end server. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so the back end and front end are compiling and starting up here. And once that's done, we should be able to see their actual database information on these really horrendous looking table-like things. So here is a way to create Rsvps. I can make ghostdogpr@mystery.gov join our test event. And he may have already joined that one. I'm not entirely sure. And so that should create those there. Same with, I think I can create new accounts. hello@cool.com. So yeah, now we create a new account, which I can use to then RSVP them to other events. There we go. So hello@cool now is joined something, dog Zymposium. So yes, his account ID is now, or her account ID, hello@cool.com's account ID is now associated with the dog Zymposium. And we can make new events like this one, full stack stuff. Cool. And then it gets added to this list of events. But we're not really doing anything beautiful with this. It doesn't feel like an app. It feels like a sort of some sort of exploded parallel dimension of a website. Really the ugliest ad interface you've ever seen. There's also a very sort of basic toy user interface where you can pretend like you're logging in with the user. So log in as myself, and you can see a list of events with their ugly timestamp of the date, which is not really what we want to present to our end users in an ideal world. People don't read this ISO date time format as easily as computers do. And we can toggle RSVP and attending. So it sort of has, it's forced, it's an interface, a very naked, thin interface into the cruddy backend, but it is not a product, and it doesn't really make us inspired to maybe make it better as it stands. It's kind of not very interesting to build out the backend if our way of interacting with it looks like crap. So let's make it look better. That's certainly one of the goals. Let's actually go back to this thing. So we need to do some more things with the model. We need to add some more capabilities to what our events can describe. For instance, we want to, like this very meeting we're in now, it's very meta, have Zoom URLs or some sort of remote Google Meet URL, something that the user can click on that's displayed with their event. Might be nice to have durations. Right now we just have a single start time, but they can go on forever. And some Zymposiums almost go on forever, but most are around an hour and a half generally. So it'd be nice to let our users know what kind of chunk of time they're expecting to take up. RSVPs, we've pretty much handled them. There might be other things we want to do around there, but we want to eventually get to a place where we can explore, really logging in, really creating an account, perhaps, verifying your email address for your account, things that you do in real world applications, and see how you can do it easily. And if it's not easy, make it easy. Logging, metrics, monitoring, make the front end pretty. Eventually, perhaps we can get into notifications. So email notifications when a new event is created for a group that a user is following, notification settings, the boring real world stuff that applications are made out of, the 12-factor application, and seeing how we can do that, hopefully in a pleasurable way, using the facilities of a functional effects system and functional design and all the fancy techniques, and building new things when we need to build new things, which we've kind of done a little bit already. So let us think about the next step. Does that all make sense, Adam? Was that?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think maybe the only thing I'd emphasize this idea of I think we've gotten feedback that people are interested in kind of a real world like Zio exemplar app of okay, there are different these blog posts of people have the elevators moving with Zio or this and that, but kind of what's one example you can go to of builds in enough complexity that you kind of say okay, I could work off of this for my app. And we will see, but I think the aspiration here is that kind of the work we're doing could be building towards that. So I think as people are watching that, or right now, jump in the chat, I think part of what we're trying to do is kind of lay out a to-do list that would, if we did all these things, would kind of satisfy that goal. And so I think I'll open all of your feedback on are there things here that are missing, or are there things here that you feel well, they're actually extraneous. But I think this will kind of give us a basis for hopefully doing that, and hopefully that's something that'll be helpful for everyone.
Yep. Yeah, it's nice to have real world example apps. Sometimes it's difficult to connect the dots between sort of limited toy demos or if you're into functional programming, to connect these categorical concepts to actually your day job, and how they can make things nicer in practice instead of just sort of being fun toy mental challenges puzzlers. So yeah, for now though, I think a good place to start would be to inspire us to add some more features, would be to remove this horrible ugliness that is the front end and give ourselves at least a nice clean slate with which we can build an actual application upon. Like we have, okay, this was nice for verifying that our cruddy routes worked, but can we at least begin to actually create a front end and actually think about how we want users to interact with the app, to put ourselves in the user's shoes, user stories kind of thing. We don't have to do the whole agile workflow. I'd rather not actually. But I think there is something in there that's been lost in the noise and the rituals of those methodologies, which is that it's important to think about, just like an API design, what do your users want? When designing an API, our users are developers. So, but when building a product, they're users of the product. So what is your application trying, what problems is it trying to solve? How's it trying to make life easier? And then thinking about, prioritizing. There's only so much real estate you can have on a website. And okay, this has all the information that you could need on it, I guess, technically it's here. You can do the cruddy things that you need to do, some of them, not really all of them. But it looks terrible and it's very noisy and it's not prioritized in any way. And there's no sort of action or flow that a user is going to go through here because it's not designed for that purpose. So with that being said, let us think about doing some front-end stuff. And I have very quickly and terribly mocked up something quite horrible looking here, at least just to get us started. And I was working on this an hour ago, and I started with not a dark mode, but then I in my moment, I couldn't do it. It looked too ugly and bootstrappy. I've gone to dark mode, which looks like a LiveJournal website from the now mid-2000s or something. So I'm sorry about that. Design is hard, but we're going to try to do the best we can with what we have, and try to think about these sorts of flows. So one thing, and I think maybe the most common thing, at least for me, you've got to imagine some user, and I'm going to use myself. That's an easy one. I can easily empathize and sympathize with myself. When I use these apps, I generally, well, I guess what I'm envisioning for this thing, to make it slightly different than Meetup, because Meetup is sort of been around for a while. It was first created for in-person events, and you wanted to RSVP to a particular event and go to particular events. But I think that, I'm going to optimize this around what we're using it for, which is, okay, in these remote work times, there are more of these sorts of weekly, monthly, remote types of events that maybe occur on repeating schedules, little fun activity groups, whatever, things to meet with other people, learn about stuff. It might be nice to attend potentially all of them, but at least to sort of join one, see everything, and join some sort of online Zoom room or Google Hangout or what have you when they're ready. So I think two sort of flows for this might be, okay, maybe some sort of discovery mode where you can see all of the different groups that are on here, the different events that are upcoming, and you can sort of, you don't know anyone and you just want to sort of get started, you can search. That's a nice thing. Haven't really designed anything like that yet. But I think for our case, once again, to use a real life example, people probably have already known that this thing exists. They found out about it from some other means, maybe, who knows, Twitter or a friend or Discord or whatever. And we can give them a link to potentially a group page or one of these, clubs or meetups or whatever you want to call them. We've thesaurussed out the word conclave for ourselves here, which is a fun word. It doesn't have a Z in it, but that's okay. We got to get over that eventually. It's going to be too limiting. So yeah, this is a very simple, rough sketch of, okay, the user wants to know when the next meeting is and what the topic is, and potentially see some description of it. They would probably want to download, if they're interested in attending, a calendar event for it. And when it's time to join, they want to join it. Maybe see how far off that is. So maybe I was thinking here, if it's almost, you're right. It was, if it's 12 minutes ago and you're on the page, you can see that, oh, it's live in 10 minutes. This link activates, you can join it. And then this can change dynamically as the time ticks along. It can activate, this link can activate maybe, 15, 20 minutes before go time. And yeah, it's mostly just sort of a status page. So that's one feature that I think is potentially going to be useful always, some kind of status page for a meetup group. Maybe you want to see past events, maybe you want to be able to, if once again, using our own use case, maybe these are recorded and you can see a list of old recordings or old descriptions or links to something else. That would have to be sort of another UI. But this is kind of one page we could check out. But yeah, I heard some boops in the background, Adam. Were there some were those inquisitive boops?
No, not really. People seem to be excited about this, but no, I don't think we've got any substantive boops right now.
All right, those meaty boops. When those meaty boops come in, you let me know. But yeah, does this it's sort of, we were talking about this before and looked at a few different, I was trying to vaguely coalesce some sort of design for something. And I settled on this just because it seemed, it's sort of what happened. I can't explain it. This is what came together. But we could also look at sort of like how other use cases or start from scratch or thinking about that, or we could just dive into looking at something. How would we design this with the front end? How would we connect this to the back end, making something that's a little more production quality, even if this isn't the prettiest thing, at least get something that's intended to be the beginning of something that's going to be user facing and live. But what's your thoughts on that, Adam?
This looks pretty nice to me. I feel like you always have a good design style, and I feel like we've kind of maybe can come back to the equilibrium of, I feel like you kind of did this before for something else, and we kind of started with something else, and we kind of converge back to this. So I think that this is great. It probably gives us something to just move forward on.
And I think one other thing is, like, selfishly and also to motivate it, I found that working on side projects, the less it can be contrived and the more you can inject some real motivation into it, the better. We're going to keep doing these symposiums. It might be nice to have our own version of a website, just for the most basic principle. Like, I could theoretically, with this, send links to people and get at least this bare minimum to work. It doesn't need the rest of it. It doesn't really need users. It just needs, this could be a public page and it could be shared. So it sort of gives some realness to the project potentially.
And it's very nice. It's kind of exactly what you need to know. And I mean, right now, like literally nothing else. It's like, you want to go to this? Here's the next one. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about who's going. Don't worry about other ones. Just like, here's the next time.
Yes, I think they have an acronym for this concept, which is the MVP, the most valuable product, the minimum viable product, which is a silly thing, but it actually is also a good thing.
I think there's something to be said for it, because it makes it very clear and easy what you're supposed to do.
Yes. So, okay, great. So, and it removes ambiguity. It removes decision overload. This is something that would be potentially minimally useful. Obviously, if anyone has any ideas, like this is, or we can do the too many cooks approach to product development. If you hate certain colors or design choices, yeah, please let me know. We can mug with it. Design is really hard, and it's you sort of hate it until it starts to come together, and then you kind of think you're good, but then you try to make something new, and you lose everything again, and it's really painful. But so is, that's what art and creation does. You're always in struggle with your innate limitations as a person. Okay, so enough of that. Let's actually look at how to put this into code. So yeah, we have some design. Yay, our genius designers have mocked up something truly stunning. How do we connect this to our backend? How do we potentially shift around our data model? Do we have what we need? Do we kind of spike some random CRUD routes? Is this a nice way of interacting with the data as far as what we require here? I'm going to say not quite, but we can start with the UI and then think about what we need to do with the backend. Let's take a look at a few models first. So we have our event right now is quite simple. It has some ID, it has a title, it has a description, it has a time, just a start time really. and it is nothing else. So we talked about some other things we might want to have here, like a Zoom link, which clearly our mockup does need in some way. A Zoom link, as well as an end time, maybe, if we want to have a duration / end time. Either way, we can figure out the other, derive one piece of data from the other. And then I think one thing that is kind of inherent in this design is that, well, is this just going to be, conclave.io or, conclave.io or something? Well, that looks so stupid. So is it going to be something like that? Or is it going to be conclave.io / Zymposium, or a particular event, right? I think in terms of the flow that I just described, the user doesn't know what the next event is. They potentially know the group that they care about. So this is Zymposium group, or some other, knitting with friends group. And they'll go to that website and see when the next meeting is.
You did not have a lot of luck with your knitting with friends.
No, knitting with friends fell apart. No one joined. Next time, next year. And once we have that sort of modeled, some kind of group, or I don't really know what to call it. We'll call it group for now because it's the first thing that came to my mind. Some kind of organization or group or what have you. These are going to have many events. So we need something at a higher level potentially, which this will then have maybe a group ID of a UUID. And we'll need to have cruddiness for that, and users to create their own groups and put events into groups and all that. But we can get to that later. That's just more CRUD and more admin UIs, or we could think about how we want the actual like user-facing admin flow to look, because these are admin / users. We want it to look better than that other website that we just had previously. We don't want to make anyone have to use this. Even myself as an admin wouldn't want to use this for very long. We want to make something prettier as it's part of the product. But for now, we can ignore that. We can fake this data and make our front end just work on, maybe we could stub out some types here, but we don't have to worry about connecting it to the database just yet, which is something that's very useful and kind of easy to do with a typed programming language like Scala. You can just make types and make stubbed implementations and worry about those boring details later. Okay, so let's start by going to the front end. And let's go to this front end page that I have currently. Okay, and let's actually get this up side by side with the editor. Okay, so this currently is actually connected to here. Let's add like a header here. This is going to look terrible. Say conclave in all caps, conclave. It's probably already an app called Conclave anyway. There we go. So it is reloading here, and the whole page is flashing white. And yes, we have hot reloading, which is nice. And I'm actually going to take this whole old view and just call it old home, and then just make a totally fresh start here, and just call it. I'll add back that word that I had, conclave. Okay, and now we can go crazy with CSS and styles and make our page the way it is. So we could talk about, I'm sure not everyone here has done front end or design stuff. Once again, I am not a master at design, but I think I've done it maybe more than most functional programmers, though that is, I think, as Adam said previously. What did you say previously, Adam?
The one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind, or in this case, the man with some artistic talents in the land of back-end developers.
Yes, I'm the one-eyed functional programmer. I'm the one-eyed designer here, but I'm sure other people have design skills as well. But I've seen some really scary-looking FP blogs. But anyway, this is not going to be whatever the Mona Lisa equivalent of UI design is. But I think I can at least half regurgitate some concepts that I've read in various books or blog posts or my experience pulling out my hair in the past with design that hopefully will be useful as you try to make your own one-eyed websites or applications. I find it very satisfying. You know, you can use Bootstrap, you can just use these frameworks that sort of give you components out of the box, but I don't know, you don't really learn. There's a limit to what you're going to learn going that route. And it can be fun to think about design and sort of to correlate it and join those experiences to those of designing applications. I mean, it's really all related in certain ways. Information design, hierarchies, API design. Design is really the same thing, no matter if it's visual or textual or programmatical. But we'll see if any of that makes sense. Very practically, designing a website using divs generally, these little boxes, and using the CSS box model is very grid based and grid oriented, and that's a good way to think about your designs, to sort of slice them up mentally into some sort of nested grid. So here one might say, okay, so there's a top portion which is a grid, and maybe there's some text inside of this which is left aligned inside of there. Let me just make that a different shade. So okay, whatever. So we have the top, the bottom, this whole bottom area, and then some text is left aligned there. So we need to separate something. The way you do this in HTML and CSS is to use divs. These are sort of your, you can put two divs next to each other, or you can nest them. And then you can sort of just choose the orientation, whether left to right or top to bottom, per div level. So let me remove the text here and just add some colors. So I'm going to say background is green. This is going to look really ugly. Background is red. And let's give these some widths and heights, 30 pixels, height 30 pixels. I'll just grab all this, copy it. Okay. And so we can see here, if I may, let me just make this way bigger. We have green above red. So there's this outer div, which we used as the parent to have these two children divs inside of it, and they get laid out vertically. So green above red, that's sort of the default directionality of divs when children will be laid out vertically, but you can change that. And the way that I like to work generally is by using this CSS property called flex, the flex box model. They have all sorts of other things, but I find this to be the most flexible. So just putting display flex here, you can see that they become horizontally distributed. So we could toggle flex on and off in order to change that, but also there is a flex direction setting where you can set this to column and keep flex and then toggle the direction. So as you can see, if we sort of steal this and put it inside of itself and replace this whole 30/30 green with its own definition, it did that, but now I can remove the flex direction here, and now we're going to have a row and a column, which is great. So I can make this, give this a width of 60, give it a color of yellow, and now we get this strange little Jamaican cube. Yes. So pretty ugly, but this, if you know, imagine more sensible colors here, imagine internal padding and putting text into things. This is kind of like the basics that you need for designing your application. Flex has been around for quite some time now, and it's pretty good. And also the paradigms here of sort of having horizontal stacks and vertical stacks, these seem to be, at least by looking at some of the newer UI frameworks for mobile devices like Swift UI, the paradigm that has won out. So you sort of organize your application by nesting vertically and horizontally aligned stacks of views, and it tends to be very flexible. Oh, was there a question, or I think I see a qua?
Yeah, so we got a question about what's the app that you're using for the sketching?
Yeah, totally. It's called Figma, and it's free, I think, at least for small groups of people. It has some collaboration tools too. It's pretty good. There's a few of them, Figma Sketch, and it's spelled Figma, Figma Sketch, and there's some other ones too that I've forgotten. But after using all of them, they're all right. They all have limitations. Figma's pretty good. It actually has support for some of this. It's called auto layout, where if you select two views and then hit Shift A, it will nest them inside of one another. And then you can sort of choose their layout direction. Let me actually add a second child to this. Will this work? Let me go into this, duplicate that. So I have this sort of parent. It's very much just like the div, a parent, and I can change its layout direction, and I can change the spacing, and I can change sort of the alignment. These features are basically what you get in a tool like Swift UI. In HTML and CSS, you kind of have to use Flex, and you've got to use padding, and it's not quite as built in, but you can get similar features. But yes, it's pretty decent for organizing.
And then there was a suggestion of just maybe a little code cleanup as we embark on this part of it, of like kind of moving the existing code to like either an admin module, or like call it IO, or basically just kind of some, I don't know if we want to do that right now, we can come back at some point, but obviously we're gonna have a bunch of components here and want to organize things nicely.
Yeah. I'm basically going to keep all that code in just its separate files for now. Maybe I can hide this, and eventually we can just destroy it. We don't really need that. So I'm not going to worry too much about making it pretty, because the intention is to just totally destroy it. But I can at least get it out of the way and work inside of a new fresh file. Yeah, I'm going to even make a new file for this when we finally get to the actual building this. So yeah, so that's kind of the basic tools. Is if you have some design, think about how it's going to be organized in a grid-like fashion. Also, the fashion of design these days is very gridded. It's very simple. It's sort of made with these tools, and these tools where there's a feedback loop, where these tools were built to facilitate what you're using now. Like back in the day, people used Photoshop, and they had all these crazy patterns and made slices and had to make repeating patterns, and that's whole skeuomorphic design stuff. That was a pain in the butt and took a lot of effort. And I think luckily people have decided that it wasn't worth the effort and mostly visually confusing. And so I think there's now potential for developers who aren't, fine artists to make their own applications, because you really just need to sort of think about how to organize things in a grid, think about what your priorities are, look at other applications and say, hey, see, like, is my thing doing something that like no other popular UI does? Am I picking really crazy looking color combinations? Just got to be aware and do some comparative analysis, and it can be pretty fun if a little difficult, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, thinking more about the grid. This one's super simple, because so we have that sort of the top section with some left aligned text in it. We have this huge bottom section, and you can kind of just recurse. It's almost like recursion. So we've settled that we have a top and we have a bottom. But in this bottom section, we have another grid thing. So we could focus just on this part of it, these three, which we can imagine as being nested in this grid somehow. So we have another section here. And what does this section look like? Well, we have something on top, then we have some other section in the middle that seems to be larger, and we have this other little live join zoom thing on the bottom. So it's another sort of vertically oriented grid that we can put in here. And each of these inside of them have their own details. Most of this is horizontal, vertical. There's not much horizontal stacking, but one can imagine that, we put the title next to full stack, or we organize this horizontally or something. But this is being very sort of simple, is just all vertical, which will make our lives slightly easier, but the spacing needs to differ between certain segments. So we want to maybe have subgroupings of these. So yeah, really, that's kind of it. That's kind of how you have to analyze these websites, is just where your grids go. I think before I was looking with Adam at some other popular websites. One that I like is Airbnb.com. I mean, not that I use it too often, but it's very simple, but it still has a lot of, okay, Portland's just a 15-minute drive from me. That's awesome. I think it's a 0-minute drive, but that's interesting. So yeah, so here clearly there's like, okay, we have that top bar again, very common. And then this whole bottom section is split horizontally. There's a map on the right side and a map on the left side. And then in this map, there's sort of another horizontal bar along the top. which itself is split up into 3 segments, most of which have sort of an, you don't see the background, but there's sort of has a left aligned, a center aligned, and a right aligned element. So it's all just sort of like nested boxes. Each one of these is its own nested box. And this is sort of in your code, this will sort of turn into here is a single component. If you have one of these views that is used a lot, like, I don't know, the superhost thing or certain icons, these can all be their other shared reusable components. But you can really see how it breaks down into, a list that you'd map over and turn each into a component of some type, laid out horizontally. Like this is some kind of special filter button thing. How does that work when you click on it? Okay, and interesting, a filter button that you list, map over a list of these different filter types and create a button component for each of them. But yeah, I find this website to be like pleasantly minimal, but also have a lot of information. I mean, it also looks pretty bland and generic, like most of these websites do, with their very wide border radius around every image. It's sort of a new thing that happened in like the last 5 years. Everyone has really big border radiuses. Everything looks like a suppository. So, suppository-driven design. Okay, so let us go back to this and our beautiful thing, which doesn't look quite as nice. And I'll get rid of some of this stuff. And I'll just delete this. I said I wanted to delete it, I'll just delete it. So we won't even worry about that stuff at all. We don't need this runtime. We don't need any of that. We're just gonna, this is our front end. It's a yellow box for now. So let's go back to where we were previously. We want the title, right? So let's do conclave. And I think we wanted this to be color orange or some kind of orange. We'll worry about how to specify these styles in just a moment. Let me remove this. And I wonder if somehow I've screwed up my front-end rendering. I have I? Oh, I've deleted. Oh, I needed the runtime thing there. Okay, one sec. Someone else is using this. Import Zeo dot runtime. Some other bit of the code is using that. It shouldn't, but instead of worrying about that, okay. And now let's make back to the same size it was. Okay, so what we could do is actually start adding some classes. It's kind of nice to, have these inline styles, but these can take up a lot of room and they're kind of fidgety, and it's going to potentially muck with the structure that we want to deal with. That's the whole point of CSS and HTML being separate. Your HTML describes the structure and the CSS describes the design that uses that structure. They sort of have to be interwoven inevitably as certain design elements require certain structural properties to exist. You might need to add some divs or reorganize them to get things to work out, but it's nice to have them separated a little bit. But we can also do that in code. Another nice thing about separating them into CSS files is that we'll get instant reloading instead of this slight refresh, but we'll see. So one thing we can do here is just come over to Figma and grab this thing, which is the hex code for this color. So I can actually plop this in here and give it a sign there. Okay, cool. And I can even make this a little styles object and sort of say primary color. And I'll just copy this up here. There we go. And now I can do styles.primary color. And we'll just use that. Maybe this will help us organize some of the styles a little bit. And we want to give this I think a bold font weight was kind of the goal here. Nice. Okay, and what was our background color? It was near black, if not total black. One cool little design tip is that generally no one ever uses just pure black or pure white. They tend to have just like 2 drops of some other pigment in there just to make it, I don't know, feel less dead. Let's do 15, 14, 14. So just one tiny drop of blood to give this, the spell its potency. And let's steal this background color thing here. So I will say val background color equals color fofo fifo fum or whatever. And then let's throw this inside of here. So I will say styles dot background color. And this is a nice property of Laminar that you can just abstract these styles as you would otherwise. We'll see, however, that that did not fire at all. And because I said color, not background color. Background color. And it still will be weird, but in a slightly different way. Oh, now I've confused it because that is the already a property here. So let's do this. Obviously, not quite right. And that's because I'm actually using just a little bit of CSS. And let me actually throw this in this main.css file. I think I have a background here. Oh, no. App, yes. So I have this app CSS file. And I will set it to, oh, that's event. Actually, I think it's somewhere here. Where it is. Oh, where it is. Where it is. There it is. So there we go. Okay. And as you can see, that made it way faster to reload, which is why it's nice to, ooh, spooky. We won't go totally vampired out yet, but maybe in some other. But yeah, this looks already a little better than just being totally, well, that's white, totally jet black. It kind of feels a little, I don't know, dead. Just adding a little bit of something is a nice trick. Makes it a little brighter. Makes you just feel better. I don't know. People do it. I don't know why, but that's something I've observed, and I've gotten over my need to make everything jet black slowly over time. I think, do we have another question? Why is accommodation important?
Yeah, Rob has an important question. I think that's one that we will not be able to answer at the symposium. We can answer many questions about ZO or type level programming or all sorts of stuff that we may not be able to answer.
Wow, that's actually really a.
But it is a very good observation, man.
Yeah, well, it's 50 of them. It's a night, which I guess is pretty cheap. I think you sleep in this toilet. I think it's just staying in the bathroom, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know. Get a whole apartment. Okay. I don't know. Oh, and look, it's kind of floats above the earth. That's cool. That's a cool feature. But Rob, you can stay for free or for a nominal fee.
Nominal fee.
$2.99 an hour. Okay, so all right, so that looks great already. I love this. This is just a beautiful website. I don't even want to ruin it with anything else yet, but I will. So that's our header. We can abstract this obviously into some other little div here. Let me make a header or title. Wow. Okay, now we have a title. Great. Which makes it slightly nicer to read. We got to be careful. Is that might be that's not an HTML element. Good. Okay, so we have our title at the top of the page, and then we sort of wanted that body. The body section, which for now we'll just throw in line and we'll abstract it in much the same manner. And let's start out by being really ugly. So we wanted 3 things. We wanted up next. We wanted this sort of Zymposium, the title, the description. We can add some more information there. We'll break that out. And then at the very bottom, don't know why it's not having me tab over correctly. And then at the very bottom, we want to join Zoom. So let's say join Zoom. Okay. Looks pretty terrible. Mostly because this is not the correct alignment, and that's because of this flex here. So let me actually say flex direction column, just to be consistent. I don't really need the flex, as I mentioned before. It will just automatically do that, but just to keep everything nice and consistent, let's do this. Okay, still not quite ideal, because this whole thing needs to kind of take up all of the vertical room. Let's try to get that to work in here. And once again, let me pull this out actually and call it main section, in case Scala gets confused about that. We'll make this another div, and let's give this a display of flex, which should change a little bit. It's going to make it horizontal once again, but we don't want that in this case. But it's still useful because this allows you to do something that would be very difficult without flex, which is to align items and content in specific manners. So we can align item center and justify content center, I believe is what we need. And just to sort of get a sense of how much room this is taking up, let's give it a background color of something really horrifying looking that we'll remember to delete. Yeah, so it didn't quite take up all the vertical space. And I think I can do this by saying height 100%. We're gonna have to muck around with this a little bit. And I've also deleted something. Okay, not quite there. We might need it here as well. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there we go. Hey, so I think we need it both places, but maybe not. Let me delete it from down here. Maybe we just need it at the top. No, okay, we need it in both places. Because you can see that, let me give this another uglier background color of red. So by giving this height 100%, it took up the whole page. But this, basically with flex, things take up the amount of, like the minimal amount of space that they require, which is super convenient. You wouldn't want everything to take up all of its space normally. For instance, if we want these to be side by side, it's nice that they, side by side, it's nice that they kind of stack and each take up just their amount of room so that they can all fit. But we want this to, in this case, take up the entire height given to it. So I'll delete these things and we'll see that it takes up, height 100%. I deleted that up there too. Okay, color's gone nice. Now down here, which is kind of what our design wanted mostly. Actually, this is kind of more something that's floating upon it. We don't want it to be offset by any amounts, but we can tweak that stuff later. We just kind of want to get in the broad strokes here of the design. So we have up here this up next header thing title, which I think is going to be font weights dot bold again. And this is going to have some, maybe we'll just set the opacity and kind of make this 0.7 or something. We can give it an actual color later. It's actually good to be consistent with the colors. Oh, actually I have colors in here. So let's give this just this color. Color this. And there we go. Oh, comma. Oops. And is that happy? Yes. Okay, that looks fine. And then same with join zoom. Font weight dot bold. And as we start to notice patterns in our design and sort of properties that are shared amongst different buttons, we can abstract these into like shared styles like here, or make actual components that we want to use. And by the way, if you use Scala, I use this trick a lot, it's very silly, but if you use Scala formats, because it's kind of hard, like every time I hit save here, it bumps everything back. But if I want to break things out, I can, and see that happens. If I want to break things out, I can make a new line and add a comment and then delete it, because that comment there will force it to break. So I do that all the time. It's a silly thing. There's probably another way of doing it that involves less typing, but it's kind of pleasant as well. So, okay, so join zoom is there. I believe this is the same. We've already done this. Color, style, dots, primary color. Maybe they should have a colors section instead. Maybe I should just actually rename this to be colors. Hopefully that's happy. And then I can just rename this to be primary. Lovely. And then this can just be background. It already is. Great. Okay. So there we have the join zoom, we have Zymposium, we have up next. So this is like a really minimal version of what our application was supposed to look like. So let's worry about this sort of middle section, which is the events information. And now we have that abstracted. We can work on this. So we're going to want to wrap this in a div once again, and basically do the same thing. It's going to be flex and a columnar flex alignment. So we have Zymposium, then we have full stack Zeo here. And then at the end, we have some other information, the date, the time. So let's throw this in here. And actually, here I wanted it to be 2 lines. And so as you could see, well, first of all, it looks terrible. I think it was center aligned. So let's do the same thing we did, justify content, center. I always forget if it's align items or justify content. I'm pretty sure. Okay, I was going to say I was pretty sure it's justify content, but I think it must be align items. It's annoying because they flip when you flip the direction. So yeah, it's kind of.
There was a question about that colors.primary and how that works.
Oh, sure. So because we're using laminar here, you can abstract. So basically, we have these divs. This is an HTML, right? This is Scala code. And we can have these divs. And inside of divs, you can nest other divs. You can nest text, or you can nest. You can nest properties, CSS properties. And these will get applied if I inspect this element as inline styles on the elements themselves. If I can close this style panel somehow, where is it? How do I? Okay, I'm just going to copy this because it doesn't seem like it's amenable to change at the moment. So let's just close this. I copied what I wanted to. So for this zoom, join zoom link, we can see that it made a div and it added the style font weight bold as a string and color RGB 249990. And that is all the doing of, if we go to join zoom, font weight.bold, while this is a Scala thing, it's actually just adding that inline style there. And colors.primary is a val that we have abstracted, which is a color property, which is the style thing. So it's semi-type safe. Sometimes they give you like dot completions, but for any of these properties, you can also just add a string that will be added directly. But these are all styles, I believe, or a setter. These will in some way modify that element. Yeah. Okay, so now we have the information. It doesn't look good yet, but okay, we'll work on that now. We have it in event information. So there's first this Zymposium thing, and also the spacing is off as well. So this was, I think, that other darker color up next. Let me pull this color out and call it subtle. Call it subtle color. I'll move it up here, and then do colors.subtle. And now I can use colors.subtle for this Zymposium thing as well. And I think it was font weight.bold, but it also had a font size of, I don't know, it was way smaller. I think 14 pixels. It's broken out again. Not quite 14, 16, 18, something. I can take a look at this design. It's good to be consistent. 14, okay. Looks slightly better in the real world as 16. I think it might be because I was slightly zoomed in here. Yeah, I was slightly zoomed in. We'll see. I guess I'll stick with my design for now, and then we can tweak it. Sometimes it's actually nicer to, once you have stuff in code, to tweak styles in code, just because you can be very accurate about pixels, and everything is kind of gridded up for you automatically. Whereas, you can easily shift things around in a design application. So I kind of find myself going back and forth between one and the other, and sort of trying to keep them up to date, so I can experiment with tweaks in here potentially. That might be easier to do than in here. Okay, so that looks still terrible. Let's add a big padding along the top. So I can say padding, I don't know, 48 pixels. Let's try this and see what happens. Okay, so that added some spacing between them. I kind of just I think I just eyeballed these. So there's a 66 pixel margin, which isn't super round or anything. I will, I guess, choose 66 for now and just see what that looks like. Okay, great. By the way, with padding and with a lot of CSS properties, this is actually giving padding on all sides. We don't want it on the left and right because now it's squishing. So we can have it just on the top and bottom by, I believe, doing 0 pixels second. I believe it's going to be top, bottom, left, right. Yes, and that seems to have succeeded in this case. So there's a strange sort of pattern. You can look it up with CSS, but if you just give one number, it's for everything. If you give 2 numbers, it's top, bottom, then left, right. And if you give 4 numbers, it is, I believe, top, then right, then bottom, and then left. I think. I forget where it starts. We could test it out, but it's not terribly interesting. Okay, so now we have some spacing. Doesn't look great yet. Full stack Zio. What did this look like? This was bold and 36 pixels. And once again, with these styles, with these things like font sizes, we probably want to break these out because we don't want to use, oh, I denied you in my moment of swiftness. If you could rejoin, and I will not escape so paranoidally. So this is also font weight.bold, as well as font style .italic. Okay, and I'm ready to accept you this time.
I appreciate it.
Okay, that looks more like the thing. So one other thing to notice here is that we have a new line that we copy pasted, but it does not show up here. And that's because new lines are not rendered in HTML. You control spacing by using multiple divs, potentially, multiple block elements. A block element is one that sort of will take up another line, be its own indistinct thing. Or you can use this pre-element that stands for pre-formatted, so it will maintain the spacing there. But that's kind of for like debugging or maybe for showing code blocks and things like that. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to use div. And instead, we're going to just break this up into another series of 2 divs that are going to be, once again, if this is the design that we want, vertically aligned by, once again, staying flex column, which is great. And also, once again, we wanted that to be centered. So we're going to say, what is it? Align items now, dot center. Okay, Friday, August 10th at 11 a.m. PST, which once again is going to be a totally different color. This might be too many colors. We might want to use a subtle one, and it's going to be size 16 and not bold. So we'll say color is this, and font size is going to be 16 pixels. Okay, that made it look quite horrendous. I wonder why that happened. Div at 11 a.m. PST. Why would that have happened? Let me give it a background color of green to sort of see why that got really ugly all of a sudden. That's not good. Was it the font size that did that? That's very strange. I'm not entirely sure why that became so ugly based on a different font size. Huh. It just doesn't like 16 pixels. Maybe I'll make it small for now. That might be too small, as that is like thinking about information hierarchy. That might be something we actually care about, is what time this thing is. So maybe I'll make it slightly bigger then. We'll stick with that for now. I don't know why it was getting funky. It could be because of my resized browser or something. I'm not really sure. Okay, and the last thing here is the spacing around these elements. And unfortunately, there's no, with this built-in flex box, you kind of have to do it with adding padding or margins or maybe empty elements. For instance, I could add an empty div inside of here that had a particular height, or I can add that same sort of top and bottom padding to here, or I could use some other sort of, there's a grid thing we could use with CSS as well. But for simplicity's sake right now, I'm just going to do this and throw some spacing around there. And let's see what spacing I used here. I used 8 pixels, which I think is going to look too small here, but not sure. Nope, that looks fine. Everything looks a little too small because I think I designed this in a zoomed in way, which yeah, makes it look better at this particular layout. But that's the thing about web design in particular. People can view your web page on so many different browsers, so many different sizes that you kind of have to, it's not always going to look great on every one of them, and you have to sort of look at your design in lots of different ways. Okay. Were you able to, do we need to send you the link again, Adam?
Yeah, maybe send me one more time.
Okay, gotcha. Where's this? Sorry, one.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Are there any questions as well? Let's see. Oh.
I think at least a portion of our audience is eager for non-front end things, but I think today may be a front end day, and we may have other days that, you know, I think part of what we want to do is kind of the beginning, lay out a set of features we wanted to have for an app like this. And I mean, definitely, like, it's not going to be a nice like example app if like the front end looks like it did like at the beginning of this session. So that's definitely like one feature that we needed to like implement. I mean, there are a bunch of others that I think we had on our list, kind of resistance and logging and metrics and all these other things. So like, I think probably this is going to be like one of like a series that I don't know if we're going to do them all back to back. We'll kind of be building on this over time and hitting on different features. So, I mean, definitely kind of feedback heard that people want like other features as well. I think we're kind of committed for this symposium to be working on this, and we'll kind of get somewhere for this, but we'll definitely hit on all those other things sometime in the future.
Yeah, I think to be an I mean, we've tried to keep them mostly self-contained, but I think in order to be representative of real world problems, you know, you can't build a full app in 90 minutes, unfortunately. But we can try to make it more possible to do that. We'll see.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think probably the goal is not like we're gonna have it all done in one session, but maybe we can check off one of those things off of our list in each session.
Yes. So to sort of slightly make a beginning of a prettier front end. But I mean, this now sort of hooray! I went on some tangents about design for those who cared. As far as I understood it. Okay, there's one last thing we could do here with this join Zoom button. Where is this? Let's pull out join Zoom, which has now to show one bit of horizontality. If I make this display flex, if you noticed, we had those little divider lines, sort of a stylistic flourish on either side. And we can get that basically by saying width of not 100 pixels, let's just say 18 pixels, height of 1 pixel, and then basically give ourselves colors.primary, except obviously that's going to be the front color, not the background color. So I'm going to say primary background, primary BG, just make that better. And background, I guess I'll make this background BG as well, which will be a little awkward, but I need the background keyword here. I guess I could use background color actually. So let's do that. So now if I do this, I have, where'd it go? Join Zoom, join Zoom, join Zoom, join Zoom. Yes, okay, primary BG. And now we'll see a tiny little line to the left. That's not long enough and it doesn't look right anyway. 32. And I will just duplicate this for now because it's faster. And then I can call justify content center. I think now I want align items as well because I'm going align items center. And I think it'll make it look sort of all right. Cool. And then I can give a little tiny padding now, not top and bottom, but left and right of like 8 pixels or something. Wow, and now it looks like this beautiful thing, just like the design. Incredible. Where'd it go? Yeah, not quite, but it looks all right. We'll just keep it as that for now, 12 pixels. Okay, so now we have something basic, and I think maybe now to sort of address those concerns about, okay, we don't want to do all front end, and I will try to do some of this sort of in the background as well and kind of plan out some other pages, but because we don't want to see someone struggling through this every time. But just that sort of gives you a general sort of process overview of how one might translate a very simple UI into code. And it didn't take very long to do that. But now I think we would like to connect this to the backend potentially. Not sure if we're going to be able to do that fully. One of the things that I mentioned is that we do not have this concept of groups. So we can add a concept of groups such that we can sort of then pull the next event for a particular group and then list its time and then use actual live information and add them into join just in time. So maybe we can actually accomplish that.
Let's see if we can actually, all right, I think I'm now finally got this working.
You made it, awesome, awesome. So let's actually do that. Let's add a group and let's see if we can have at least that connected on the back end. I'm not sure if we'll have time to hook that up to this UI in particular this time, but I think that's something we could then do next week, and hopefully in the background I can design maybe another page that we can work on and or getting this actually connected. I mean, I think hopefully my goal would be in either next week or a couple of weeks to have some version of this live that's with the Zymposium information at least. So let's go to our event model. I will pull you along, force you to follow me, haha. And so here I had this group ID thing, and I think in order to make this actually work, we'll need to make ourselves a group, which will need its own ID and potentially a name string, because we have Zymposium here. And for now, I think that's really all we want to do, at least at this level. But other code is going to break if I compile this, because group ID did not exist before. So let's follow that around. Oh, I should make this final case class. That wasn't part of my my shortcut before. Okay, so that's compiling in the background. I'm pretty sure, though, one of the places it's going to fail is in the event repository, because we're maybe not, though. It might just all actually work because we're using Quill, which is going to use the structure determined of the case class itself to make queries. There will definitely be some problems. So, oh yeah, okay. Create event from a new event. So we don't have enough arguments for this right now. So let me use that break line trick again. Okay, and we're going to need to have group ID as the second argument. By the way, this is one of my favorite things in IntelliJ, because sometimes it's hard to tell, like, where do I insert the thing? What are these even? And you can kind of wait a while for the thing to come up and help you, but it doesn't actually always show up as it is now. If you hit Command P, like you're printing something, it will bring up the properties, which is really useful, and it highlights what you have there. I mean, it's a simple thing, but because labels are optional, even there's another thing, if you hit Alt-Enter, you can add named arguments, which only works if it's actually valid. So we need some kind of group ID here. So on this new event type, I'm going to give it a, let's say this has to now also provide a group ID. There might be other ways of getting this, because ostensibly this new event payload will be sent as a user as part of some group, but perhaps the user can have multiple groups anyway, so maybe that should be part of this new event payload. Also, I think for now we didn't have the user take time, so this is sort of incomplete as it is. So we'll force this stuff out as we build the. Maybe next time I could try to see if spike out some the event creation page and form and what that would look like. The actual one that the user would use, not the sort of the cruddy admin version. So, okay, but we do need a group ID, which I've just put into here. Oh, and is this sad? I don't think it's sad. Oh, I have no comma. That's very sad. Okay. Now I could add those named arguments if we wanted to see what that looked like, which is sometimes useful. But here is fine because they're mostly self-explanatory. Okay, so what broke next? Let me jump somewhere else, recompile. Okay, a new event. New event var. So this is part of this new event form thing. I'm just going to have this is totally broken for now. So I can actually just get rid of this. I'm just going to comment this out. This is some old stuff and other things will break too that's using this. So I'm just going to go on a comment out spree. Goodbye. Admin page, commented out. No more admin page. We'll make that better in the future. Anything else happy? No, everything, okay, everything else is actually happy. And for now, obviously, we're going to have to create our events via the database itself as we've destroyed our admin stuff. And we're going to have to, there's no way currently, at least, of using this new case class structure to generate a database migration for us, though that is sort of on the docket for this Zeetup project that I'm using to regenerate everything. I haven't reloaded that in a while. Let me reload that in the background while I open up Data Grip, which is the a UI for working with databases. So we can make the migration there and add this new table and change the old events table to now have a group ID foreign key that we can use to associate these and query them based on and get the organized group by group ID and then sort by recency and pluck the most recent or upcoming, most recent upcoming event. Evaluate for free, please. Cool. Oh, what? Continue. There we go. Oh no, I'm actually using, someone said you mentioned IntelliJ, but it seems you're using the Atom editor. Nay, it is just, it is the Atom 1 dark design. So I highly recommend the Material UI design plugin for this thing. It's super good. Material, theme UI, and then the Atom 1 dark theme, because the default theme in IntelliJ makes everything basically gray. Like all the text is gray. This had the most colors. Not that I care about the colors, but it's nice to distinguish what's a trait versus what's a method versus what's a val. So vals are green, methods are blue, etc. Objects are or I think case classes are yellow, traits are green. So yeah, it's super nice, and I highly recommend if you're using IntelliJ to use a theme. It makes things much clearer. Cool. Alrighty, so here in Data Grip, this other tool, I have, sorry, it's a little small right now, but I have an events table. So the first thing we want to do is actually create a new table. So I'll make a new table, not a new sequence. I'm not even sure what a sequence is. A new table called group, and I hope group isn't like a special keyword or something. But I'm just going to say ID, and this is going to be a UUID, and the default is going to be this gen random UUID, and this is going to be our primary key. Hooray. And it's not going to be null. I think that's obvious based on the fact that it's a primary key, so I don't need to set that. And then we're going to have a name, which is going to be some, I guess I could just have it be text, or maybe I should have it a varchar 256. So we'll have a limit of, you can't have a giant name. I forget if it's 256 or it should be 255. I think it's 255. And this will not be null. And I could say it has to be unique as well. Why not? And we'll do that. I guess I could just have that as the ID if it's unique, but let's have a UUID instead. And then I have to go to events and modify the table. and add a new column called group ID. And this is going to be a UUID. And it's going to be not null, I guess I should say, even though before I do that, I should delete all of my current events because none of these have UUIDs, and we're just gonna not give it a default. We're just gonna make a new, I could have given them a default. Oops, but it's too late. I'm going to modify the table, do that same thing, make a new group ID, give the UUID. This is not null. And then I want to make it a foreign key. So I can say foreign keys, add a new column. Target table is going to be group from ID. Oh, so from group ID to ID. So this is the event group ID. And then I can have it on delete cascade. And on update, I guess cascade. I'm not really sure what an update cascade does, but also like that. Okay. So now we have to make an event, perhaps. Good idea to make one of these. No, new event, please. There we go. Title, full stack Zeo description, nice and full stack Zeo stuff. Time. Ooh. Oh, good. Oh, thank goodness. It has an clever little auto thing for us. Hopefully that works. There we go. And group ID, this will be, oh, well, we need a group. So let me go to here and make a new group first. Zymposium. Hit Command Enter there, and now I can pick whatever the group ID is. I think I can search for it. Oh, no. Okay, let me go to group again and copy this and go back and paste it. And yay, okay, great. Whew. And I can delete this, or duplicate it rather, and say backend stuff. Lovely. And then give this some other date further into the future. And save that. Oh, I did not save that. There we go. Okay, all saved. So now we have two events, and we could theoretically, they're both in the future. We can make sure that it picks the one called backend stuff or something for this code. Okay. All right. So let's see if this can actually do anything now. Let me go to the back end real quick. And let us go to the event repository. So I think something we want to be able to do is to sort of get the most recent event for a particular group. So another thing we might want is to get, given a name, a group ID, or given a group ID, a name or something. But for now, let's just do a most recent, next event for a particular group ID. So UUID, and this is going to get us back a task of an option of an event. Next event, convert to functions, okay. And now we can add this to here. So we're going to run a new query of event. And we're going to say filter, where the group ID is equal to group ID. And then we can call sort by time. Oh, and I can also say and let me do this, events. So where the events group ID is equal to group ID, and events.time is less than instant. Oh, please import java.util.instant. Oh, java.time.instant. Where is it? There we go. Instant.now. What is this though? This is an instant. Are we not happy here? Oh, we don't have math ordering to ord. Filter with this and this. This might be an issue actually. Let me also say lift. I think I'm going to do that here. Okay, for now, let's not worry about the ordering. I'll figure that out in the background. And then we can basically say map head option. That'll get us back a list of this. And then I need to also provide the environment. Okay, and that should get us a next event for a given group ID, which I can just muck with down here. say query muckery extends app. This will be a Zeo app. I'll implement the run method. I will go back to data grip and grab the group ID that I'm looking for here. And val gid, let's post that in here. UUID dot from string. Lovely. Oh, two spaced out there. Okay. So here we can call our event repository dot next event. Oh, let me see something. Oh, I don't have the accessible macro. Let me do that. Accessible. So that'll add some helper functions for us. Event repository dot next event for this group ID. And then I'll just call dot debug next events and then call dot xcode. And I think, oh, then we have to provide an implementation of this. So I will say inject. Now we'll import zeo.magic, which will lovely be included in the next version of Zeo, and say event repository live dot layer. And we'll also need a connection to this. So let me see where I'm also already calling this. I believe it's in the backend. Event repository live, and I need this quill context live thing as well to give myself Zymposium quill context. And I think this will work. Let me try to run it. Find the following. Oh, group ID. Yes, I need to call lift here. Oh, sorry, what did you say?
I was laughing at the query muckery.
The query muckery, yes. I've made up a word, potentially. Dictionary. Muckery. Mockery, no muckery. There's a mucker, though.
Mucking around.
Mucking around.
Figuring things out.
Uh-oh. Oops. Okay, and then I had a test version of this as well, so I need to quickly implement this, and also say task.none. Hopefully now everything is sorted out. Okay. And we got
question, why use a hub here and not a queue?
Why use a hub here? Oh, okay. So this is actually interesting. So where am I doing the hub anyway? This is kind of for something a little different. I think we talked about this. I'm not sure actually, maybe added this in the background. So there's potential that we talked about this in a previous session. But basically I wanted these two streams that I could emit all the new Rsvps and all the new events. You could just listen to an event stream and get them. But if you watch Adam's talk at Zeo World on Hub, it'll sort of describe the use case differences, but a queue is great for distributing work. So if you need to get tasks A, B, and C done, and you don't care who does it, then one worker can take task A, another worker can take, tasks B, and then whoever's finished first can take task C. So it's worker one, worker two. So it's great for distributing work amongst workers, whereas a hub, if you said had the same three, not so much tasks this time, but say events, and you had some like listener one and listener two, you don't want one to just hear about new events A and B and A and C, and the other one to hear about event B. You want all of these users to get all three events A, B, and C. So a hub will make sure that each listener, it's more of a pub sub thing where each listener will get all of the events that are broadcast. So when I push onto the hub what is it called? Emit, publish. When I publish onto the hub a new event, it's going to get received by all listeners eventually. So as long as it didn't blow up or unsubscribe or something. Whereas a queue is going to distribute that work amongst workers. So it's not intended to give each worker doesn't want each. That would be bad if each worker redundantly processed each event or each whatever unit of work to be generic. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, luckily that's we're not using that now. So we're just, this is simply making just a query to get the first event based on some group ID. And it works. And we get an event based on that group ID. And we got the one that was at August 15th instead of, obviously that's in the past, unfortunately, but I did not filter it based on it having to be in the future yet, because I have to see about, I might need to add some kind of something for the instant to make sure that it can do comparisons here. I'll look into that. I don't want to waste everyone's time with me searching through docs, but next time I'll add that here. And so now at least we have a method that we can do to get something about something. And we have 10 minutes left, 7 minutes left, and I think there's just enough time to potentially get this to work. And to do that, I'm for this event protocol thing. And I'm going to call def next event. And this will be a task of an option of an event, just as before. And now I'm going to recompile, so it'll take me to exactly where I need to do this. And this protocol is kind of what we've been using as the intermediary. It'll delegate to the event repository, to the account repository, other things. But this is kind of like our API in code. So now I need to add this method, and it's going to be very trivial because we're just going to call on our event repository next event for a particular group. Luckily, we have this muckery thing that has a group ID in there. So we'll just use the one that we know is valid. In the real world, this will have to be based on what page you're on, and we can look that up based on the ID or store it somewhere. Yeah. So let's see. So that's event protocol live, next event. So that's happy. And then we just have to use that, I believe. So let's go to the front end. Okay. So here, let us see if we can do this. Next event stuff. So I will say, I think I deleted all of my clients and things. Let me go up to, I didn't remove everything, right? What did it look like? Let me see where am I using event protocol? Create event protocol. Aha, derive clients. Somewhere I'm using derived clients. Maybe I have to do this again. Derived clients. .gen events protocol. Okay, I'm doing this here. Oh, clients. Good. So I've already done this. So next event is going to be clients dot, if I have clients, clients capital C, clients dot event service dot next event, which is going to get us back a Zeo task of an option of an event, which I can call to event stream on, I believe, if I've added this helper method here. I might need to actually run this with the runtime, but I've been working on some to events stream. Let's see if I added this in some helper class. To event stream. Okay. Yeah. Zeo laminar, Zeo interop laminar Zeo ops. So I can turn this into an event stream that laminar is aware of. It will be this event stream of an option of an event, which we can use to get some information. I can actually call on this filter or collect rather, and I can just get the sum case out. Some events. So this will simply not emit if it is empty. Cool. So now, if I want to, down here, I can replace full stack Zeo with child.text is the result of next event, whenever that comes in. And I can take its title. And I can also turn this into a signal, giving an initial value of like loading or something. And I hope this works. We'll see. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Removes those parentheses. Doesn't seem to work. Let's see why. What's error are we getting? Forbidden to load 403 forbidden status. Oh, maybe I need to reload my backend. Let me try that.
It's been a while.
Seems like there's some kind of, yeah, it's been going for a while. We can also debug that next time. Not sure why that would fail, but I mean, it could just be blowing up for a variety of reasons. Okay, once it's loaded, we'll try again. Loading. 403 forbidden. I wonder if perhaps I needed to do some kind of, yeah, I'm not really sure. 403, I don't have permission. Oh, I know why, because I'm not authenticated, because I added some authentication to these routes.
Another topic we can come back to one of these weeks.
I didn't really want to add it to that one. Event protocol, next events. Yeah, that was my mistake, because yeah, that's getting added there. If I go to backend, I think I am. Yes, this user events service is deriving the. Oh, it's actually deriving the user events protocol. So I'm not entirely sure, but I've clearly screwed something up. I'll look into that in the future. But we can connect this to the front end and have it be actually connected to groups and stuff like this. And I will design a page for basically creating new accounts and creating, I think that'll be a good thing to bite off next time, as it's kind of a real world thing. If you want to host events here, you might want to create new accounts and or create new events that will then be shown to people who join this page. But yeah, it would be nice to get this whole page fully working as well. So we'll think about.
Yeah, we can do a little bit of work in the background, and maybe we'll just do it ourselves, or we can do like a live stream maybe at some point, just for people who want to. Yeah.
Yeah, it is also open source. So if anyone has any.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I think that's like a really good point, and maybe a good thing to like end on is like. I think this idea of having this exemplar app is like something that like a bunch of people have expressed interest in and would be beneficial to like the community overall. So we're going to try to do something here to like spearhead it. But yeah, we'd love to make it a collective endeavor. So I think if people want to do pull requests, that'd be fantastic. And I mean, maybe we can even try to like create some like issues or something, and we'll kind of tackle them if they need to be tackled in some of these sessions. But if people want to do things offline, we can also people that's a great thing to do, and we can highlight some of those.
Great. Now it's called Conclave, which sounds cooler.
Yeah, actually does sound very cool. It's fitting. We're all coming together to do this thing.
So yes, if anyone's curious about that, I'll post the link into the Discord. Yeah. So I'll work on some more designs in the background. I hope that was interesting. But yeah, let us know what parts of this you want to take more of a look at, what parts would be helpful in your own applications, whether or not it's sort of using Z layers to organize your application. How do you do app architecture? How do you do background processes? UI design, anything. Maybe we can do a little poll in the Discord. Do John's thing of the random little icons. Yes, yeah, we'll pick some emojis. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, an hour and 30 on the dot. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Thanks, everyone. I hope that was entertaining or useful. A combination of both. But see everyone next week. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Bye.